Hello everyone, welcome to this class, and today we'll be treating a JAMB past question chemistry on separation technique. So let's look at the first question. The separation of mixture of solid by physical method can be based on differences in the following except A, melting point. We can use melting point to separate solid. B, solubility. B is not the answer. C, particle size. No. You can use particle size to separate solid. But D, molar mass. D is the answer. Molar mass is not a physical property, it's a chemical property. So the answer here is D. D is the answer. So let's look at the second question. Dash contains two or more constituents which can easily be separated by physical method. Dash contains two or more constituents which can easily be separated by physical method. A, compound. The answer is not compound because compounds are made up of two or more elements and they cannot be separated by physical compound. Elements cannot be split into simpler units by ordinary chemical processes. So the answer to this question here is C. So mixture contains two or more constituents and can be separated easily by physical method. So let's look at this question. Which of the following method is used to separate salt which decompose on heating from their solution? A, precipitation. B, crystallization. C, evaporation. And D, distillation. And please, if you need more lectures, maybe if you are not chance to attend normal lecture, there is an online class available which you can join. To join that class, message the number in the comment section in your WhatsApp. The number is in the comment section. Just WhatsApp me. I will be available to teach you online class. I can send the message to my Gmail too. So A, precipitation. B, crystallization. C, evaporation. And D, distillation. The answer here is B, crystallization. So crystallization is used to separate salt which decompose easily on heating from their solution. Now let's look at this question, chemistry 2022. Crude oil can be separated into different portions by means of A, simple distillation. B, crystallization. C, fractional distillation. And D, chromatography. The answer here is C. We use fractional distillation to separate liquid that are soluble but they are soluble and has close range in their melting and boiling point. So we use fractional distillation. And crude oil, petroleum, we use fractional distillation to separate the mixture that are present there. Even refineries that we see, they work through the process of fractional distillation. Now let's look at this question. Year 2021 question. A compound U melts at 82 degrees Celsius and boils at 113 degrees Celsius. If U was found to be insoluble in water, a mixture of U in water can best be separated by A, chromatography. B, sublimation. C, filtration. And D, use of separating funnel. The answer is C. And the reason why the answer is C, you have to be careful with this kind of question. Be patient and look at the question. They say that it's found to be insoluble in water. So since U is insoluble in water, the best way that we can separate it is filtration. So now let's look at the next question. So which of the following set of operation will completely separate a mixture of sodium chloride, sand, and iodine? So you can read the question there. And the answer here is B. Let me explain the reason why the answer is B. We know that iodine can undergo sublimation. Iodine can undergo sublimation. So when iodine undergoes sublimation, it will leave the mixture, leaving only sand and sodium chloride. And then we know that sodium chloride is soluble in water, but sand is not soluble in water. So we will add water, addition of water. Then after we now added water to it, we will now perform filtration to separate the sodium chloride from the sand. So we will now be left with a solution of sodium chloride, and then we can now evaporate it to dryness. So the answer here is B. So let's move forward. 2017. Filtration is best used to separate A, immiscible liquid, B, insoluble solid from liquid, C, miscible liquid, and D, soluble solid from a solution. Soluble solid from a solution. So the answer is not A. The answer is not A. There are other methods that we can use. And the answer is not B and C rather. The answer cannot be C because we cannot use filtration to separate miscible liquid. And the answer is also not D because we cannot use a soluble solid from a solution and we use a filtration method. No, we use insoluble solid from liquid. So the answer here is B. Okay, look at this question here. It's similar to the previous question. The separation technique that can be used to separate an insoluble solid from a liquid. A, precipitation. B, decantation. The answer is decantation. Decantation just means carefully pouring away. It involves carefully pouring away. So when you carefully pour away the liquid, you will be left with the insoluble solid. Now let's look at this question. So which of the following separation technique will show that a black ink is a mixture of chemical compound? A, crystallization. B, chromatography. The answer is chromatography. So chromatography will show that a black ink is a mixture of chemical compound. And there are notes that explain chromatography very well. Send the message to me on WhatsApp and I will send that notes to you. So now let's look at this question. 2000 question. Yeah, 2000. Sieving is a technique used to separate mixture containing solid particles. A, small size. B, large sizes. D, different sizes. And D, the same sizes. So the answer here is C. We use sieving to separate mixture of different solid of different sizes. So that is what we use sieving for. Now let's look at this question here. 2000 question. A mixture of iodine and crystals and sulfur crystal can best be separated by. The answer here is B, and let me explain why it is B. We should know something about sulfur. One of the properties of sulfur is that it is soluble in carbon 4 sulfide. Sulfur is soluble in carbon 4 sulfide. So we add carbon 4 sulfides to it to dissolve the sulfur, and then we filter off the iodine. So look at this year 2022 question. Chromatography. The chromatography separation of ink is based on the ability of the component to A, react with each other, B, react with solvent, D, dissolve in each other in the column, and D, move at different speed in the column. The answer is D. That's the principle of chromatography, that different compound, different molecule, because they have different sizes, so the way they travel is different from each other. The one that have larger size, they will travel slower than the one that have the smaller size. So that is just the principle of chromatography, and that's D. So now let's look at this question here. A mixture of sugar and sulfur can best be separated by A, dissolution in water and the rest. Okay, don't let us stress ourselves too much. There's something that we should know about sugar. Sugar is soluble in water, yes. And sulfur is not soluble in water. So how are we going to do this one? The answer is C. So we dissolve in water first. When we dissolve in water, we carry out filtration. We carry out filtration to remove sulfur. So when we carry out filtration, we are only left with the sugar solution, and then we can now perform evaporation to dryness. So thank you very much for your patience. We'll see you again next class. Thank you and bye bye.